All right, so now that you have your account set up, we are ready to go. So first off, the things that I want to cover, there's quite a few, so I'll split it up into the different lectures. But I first want to cover frames, and then we'll go over the tools, we'll go over the interface itself, and then we'll go over this side over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and focus on the frames. So if you are into animation, or if you are learning animation, basically what a frame is when you think about frame by frame animation, you are drawing a image on one frame, and then on the next frame you're doing a slightly different image, giving the illusion of movement for each of the following images. So with a frame, for example, in this animation we have 4 frames. So we have him just here in a stationary position, this little top hat character guy, and we have him squishing down and then going up and jumping up into the air there. And over here, this is your live preview, and this is where you can see how many frames per second your animation plays out. So typically I do most of my animations in 24 frames per second, but when it comes to pixel art, you tend to slow things down just a hair. So basically, first try out to see what looks good. So my character, I want to make it look like he's jumping. However, because I have so little frames, it's basically going through 12 frames per second. So it's cycling through this at 3 times, so 12 times for this 4 in 1 second. So I don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and slow it down to about 8 frames. So right now I have it slowed down to 8 frames per second, and you can see the motion of the character that he's jumping up and down. And those are consisting of frames. So on this frame I have the character in a stationary position. This one he is squishing down. This one he's beginning to lift on the ground. There's a little bit of a animation principle called squash and stretch, and right here he is stretching. And then right here he's lifting from the ground. Okay? And then if we wanted to, we can have it kind of squish up, and then as he falls back down, it repeats itself. So we could probably add some principles of animation to this as well. But basically with this course, I just want to teach you how to do this. I want to teach you what the tools are and just get really quickly started. It's really, you can teach yourself this software, but there's really no explanation. There's no help section. So there's kind of a learning curve when you're first learning it if this is completely new to you. So if you haven't used any other art program, this will be a little bit of a learning curve, but you'll find that you'll catch on very quickly. So right here, just going through the frames, let's go ahead and let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a few frames. Okay, so right here, he's up in the air. I'm going to duplicate this frame, and to duplicate a frame, you go here where you see these 2 little pieces of paper. With the frames, if you want to delete it, you just click the trash can. If you want to move it, you can click this 4 arrow, and that allows you to move your frames up and down. So really cool, just as you would in any other animation program, be able to move things around. So let's go ahead and duplicate this frame. So now that we have it duplicated, I'm going to give this guy a little bit of hang time in the air. So I'm going to, don't worry about the tools that I'm using, but I'm just going to go ahead and move this current frame, or this image in this frame, up to about there. All right, very good. So I have that image up there. I'm going to use my eraser tool, and I'm just going to cut down the bottom part here. Okay, so if you're looking at the live preview, you can kind of see he's got some airtime. If we want, we can extend that out just a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and duplicate with the double paper, and I'll go ahead and S on my keyboard is how you do select. Again, I'll explain this in more detail, but so you can see there he's stretching up. We probably want to maintain, let's see how this looks. Yeah, that's okay like that. So you can see that with the frame, how I have it created, I have him here on the ground. He's stretching, well, actually he's stretching from the ground because he's getting ready to lift, and he's actually lifted off the ground, and now he's suspended in the air, a little bit more suspended, and let's say we even want him to come down pretty slow. So he's just got some incredible hang time going on. He's a top hat basketball player. So we'll go ahead and let's see. So I'm trying to find that frame that I just duplicated. And I think this is the one. So I'll go ahead and I'll drag it underneath this one here. Okay, so you see that he's got a little bit more air time as he's hanging up in the air, and then as he comes down, he squishes, goes back up. So that's how frames work. Frames are really easy to understand in this program because it basically lays everything out for you. You can see in your live preview as you're animating, which is super cool, you can see how this all looks. Okay, so do a simple example. So go ahead and play around with it. I mean, there are principles of animation that you do have to understand. You have to understand animation just a little bit to be able to understand what's going on here. But just try to make something move across the screen. If you think of like some kind of video game, just a little character moving back and forth across the screen. Basically a frame, like all these frames, they're gonna cycle. So as it goes from the top here and it moves down through the various frames, it cycles back to the top. Trying to move up my mouse there. So it cycles back up to the top and begins again. And it just keeps on cycling, just keeps on looping. And that's what gives it this effect. So instead of having to go and create the animation of him coming back down, him landing again, I could just know that the whole frame or timeline, I don't really know what it's called in this program, but the whole timeline is just repeating itself. So it's just repeating back through those frames and looping around. Okay, so that's frames. I hope you understand that. If you have any questions, leave me a question in the discussion and we'll get that answered and cleared up for you. And from here on, we're going to go to the tool section. So I'll see you in the next lecture.